Plying the treacherous waters of Bass Strait for decades, ferrying trade and tourists from mainland Australia, the two Spirit of Tasmania ferries are crucial to the prosperity of the island state.
They're a critical part of Tasmania's infrastructure, connecting it with the rest of Australia and for exporters to the rest of the world.
But the ageing ferries are overdue to be replaced. Two new ships were scheduled to be in service by now, carrying an extra 400 passengers and about 40% more vehicles. But the process has been far from smooth sailing.
There's a bit of angst, and people are always questioning when are they coming, how long is it going to be.
Down the road from the East Devonport ferry terminal, John Alexiou put in a new coffee machine in anticipation of more customers in the coming months.
But obviously the new spirits aren't quite ready yet, so we'll still see a good trade, but it would have been more of a trade if we had the spirits ready.
Across the road, locals at Cindy Schmidt's bakery are also wondering why the bigger, better ferries aren't here.
It's been a lot of frustration, I think, within the local community, because everyone was very positive and really looking forward to the new boats coming. So I guess it's soured a bit for a lot of people.
This is nominally the biggest infrastructure project in Tasmania's history, and it's also the biggest infrastructure stuff-up in Tasmania's history.
The state-owned company that operates the ferries, TT Line, began the process to replace them in 2017. Then, the estimated cost of the new ships was $714 million, and they were due in 2021. A German shipyard won the contract, but in 2020 they went bust. A new builder in Finland was locked in. They were meant to build the ferries for $850 million, with the first ship due in 2022 and the second the year after. But as the contract was about to be signed, the then Liberal Premier pulled out of the deal and instead got a task force to investigate whether an Australian company could build the ships.
I think it was a very curious decision. Well, it was never likely that those ships could be built in Australia.
After a 9-month inquiry, the Tasmanian government went back to the Finnish shipbuilders.
In the meantime, however, the slot which the Finnish shipbuilding company had assigned for commencement of the construction of those ships had passed.
Economist Saul Estlake was commissioned by lobbyists to write a report on the government's decision to back out of the deal.
The estimate I made about 4 years ago was that delays to the commencement of the replacement spirits operations could cost Tasmania's tourist industry up to $350 million a year. That's a significant loss to the Tasmanian tourist industry at a time when it's struggling still to recover from the COVID pandemic and the associated lockdowns.
The delay contributed to the project getting caught up in a global inflation surge. TT Line paid the Finnish shipbuilder an extra $8 million as the price of steel skyrocketed. But the shipyard's financial woes continued, and this year TT Line handed over an extra $80 million to keep the Spirit's build going. With the first new ship finally due to arrive within months, an even bigger debacle has emerged. The new berth for the bigger ferries doesn't exist.
I didn't believe this story when I first heard it. So this is almost $1 billion worth of ships that don't have anywhere to berth.
TT Line is supposed to be building a new permanent berth at Devonport, not far from the current terminal. In 2020, the estimated cost was $90 million for a berth that was expected to be finished this year. In June, it was revealed the cost for the new berth had blown out by almost $300 million, and it won't be ready until 2026, a year after the first ferry arrives. The government claims it was blindsided as TT Line ditched its preferred tenderer and went back to market over rising costs.
In my opinion, that threw out the opportunity to get that infrastructure ready for August, and the government was not advised. The government should have been advised. It's a further indication of the culture and the attitude, in my opinion.
TT Line blames the delays on the state-owned port authority, Tasports, claiming it denied them access for crucial geotechnical works. Tasports rejects that and says they've offered TT Line plenty of support.
They have chosen at all points to do it themselves. That is their choice.
In August, the state government told the TT Line chairman, Michael Granger, to hand in his resignation or he'd be sacked.
We didn't want to ask anybody for their resignation, but, that's where it got to. Your patience stretches only so far.
2 months after Mike Granger stood down, he's come out swinging at a parliamentary inquiry.
I worked with 6 premiers and 10 government ministers from both sides of Parliament and have never witnessed such an appalling lack of support from government as experienced over the previous 12 months.
TT Line's chief executive has also quit. The minister overseeing TT Line and Tasports for much of the debacle was Michael Ferguson, holding both the infrastructure and transport portfolios.
You can bet your bottom dollar that if this project had been delivered on time and on budget, Michael Ferguson would have been there to cut the ribbon. But it's gone in a very bad way, and because of the way that it's gone, he wants to be seen nowhere near it.
The minister insisted he was kept in the dark, being regularly assured by TT Line that the project was on track.
I was very worried, and I was the one holding them accountable through that period.
I said, Minister, our single biggest risk in this whole project is Tasports and Berth 3. Minister Ferguson replied that I needed to learn to play in the sand pit with Tasports.
I think that's a real failure of leadership and a failure of governance.
In August, Michael Ferguson relinquished his infrastructure portfolio, but by yesterday evening, the pressure had become too much. Rather than face an impending vote of no confidence, he resigned from his other positions as Treasurer and Deputy Premier.
I recognise that there have been some really significant failures and problems with the delivery of, in particular, the infrastructure to support the new ships at Devonport, and I own that. I take responsibility for it.
Thanks, guys. Good on you.
Amid the political carnage, a temporary berth solution has been flagged, but it would mean the new ships can't operate at full capacity until 2026. The government is still figuring out how much that would cost, how long it would take, and if it's even possible.
We don't want to blame anyone, we're kind of past that now. We just want to move on, and we just want the terminal to be built for everyone's sake.